Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS value plays for this week's Valspar Championship. Broke down the top end of the Draftkings pricing before, but now going to focus on some of those dumpster diving plays that you can get to for some much needed salary flexibility down low, and of course to go out there and get some much needed ownership leverage for some of the large field contests. The idea here to try and go after high upside players that can actually get into that top 5, top 10. Some of them may be a little bit risky, particularly the one upper 6K option that we're getting to here out of these four, but some of the other guys in the 7K range have a little bit of a floor this week, particularly with such a weak field. So it's a different dynamic than what you have from one of those elevated fields where you're taking guys with legit winning upside down there at the bottom end of the 7K. Not that strong this time around, but still, you got to get down there to spend up for one of those Justin Thomases, a Jordan Spieth if you want to play them together this week. So in this video, I'm going to give you the keys to do so. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Our first value is going to be Lee at the exact top end of our quote-unquote value range here on the channel. And he's $8,000, a little bit more expensive than I like going here, but somebody I really just wanted to highlight, right? Kind of forced him into this video. And it just comes down to his pedigree. He's somebody that could be, I'd say, a top end of the 8K golfer, if not a 9K range golfer, if he was coming in with any sort of form. But unfortunately for him, this recent stretch hasn't been as kind to him as that fall stretch was, where he had a few top 5 and top 10 finishes. Of late, has made, 2 of his last 4 cuts. They're all elevated fields, so, if anything, right, you can take that with a grain of salt. The shots gained metrics have been about average as well. So going up here to $8,000, you can see Lee just slightly losing off the tee, gaining on approach and around the green. Those are his most consistent skill sets, I would say, and the putter has been a slight negative too, so nothing too out of the ordinary there. The event history, he's only played here a few times, so up here you'll see that he withdrew his first time around. Last time finished in the tied for 29th place, and didn't play here in 2022, so doesn't have a ton of course history. You gotta like that top 30 finish. He has a few runs around this track, even if one of them ended up resulting in a withdrawal there, so he has some sort of experience on these greens, and overall, like I said, could be a 9K range golfer, right? Just based on some of the pedigree, those top-end finishes. Played about the President's Cup, played about all of last season, right? Making it there through the playoffs, the first few events. And overall, I'm a lot higher on his upside, his pedigree, than I think most people are. So at $8,000, I don't think he's going to be all that chalky, particularly with some of these recent finishes. Even when he's made cuts, right? It's a T for 53, tied for 42nd place there. What was that? At the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So, the form isn't going to be super sexy, right? For who is self-admittedly one of the sexiest players on tour that he likes to call himself. So a funny character. I'm definitely going to be backing him this week at hopefully relatively low ownership, and definitely not the cheapest play here that we've ever gone over on one of these value play videos, but somebody that I definitely wanted to highlight. Next up, we've got Will Gordon here at $7,500. A little bit less flashy from the personality side, but this is one of the stripers on the PGA Tour. And if there's one skill set that I'm really looking for this week that I think is differentiating myself from some of the other cappers or touts out there, is I really want off the tee play to be there. The fairways are going to be narrower this year than they have been pretty much any year at this golf tournament, and the rough at 3.75 inches, maybe growing even longer throughout the weekend, is going to be a factor. So I want players that have driving distance if everyone's going to be missing these fairways, right? And if they're 22 yards wide, sure, maybe some of the elite tier accuracy guys will be at an advantage this week, but the other way to get around it, right, is just to hit it a long way. Say screw it, right? If everyone's going to be in the rough, as long as I'm not in the trees out there with my driving distance, I'm going to be in pretty good shape, and I feel like Will Gordon fits that mold perfectly here. You take a look at the shots gained metrics, he's doing pretty much exactly what we'd expect. Gaining off the tee, gaining on approach, and around the green, the putter are just a little bit subpar. You take a look at the last 12 rounds, he fits the same kind of mold here. You can see gaining a little bit more significantly on approach, slightly losing off the tee due to his performance at the Players. He could be a little bit shaky in terms of that driving accuracy. The one thing I'll say is that you just can't miss off the planet, and what Will Gordon does a good job of at least putting himself in position to hit greens regulation when he misses off the tee. Now, at the Players, at some of these relatively difficult tracks of late with a lot of that water in Florida. Sometimes those have resulted in penalty shots, which is why over that last 12 round sample size, right, he's losing there off the tee. But long term, he's one of the better drivers on tour. I'd say he's a top 10% driver, both in terms of accuracy and distance. One of the few guys that when he's clicking in all cylinders, kind of like a Keith Mitchell, can keep it in play and hit it a country mile. And at this kind of track, you know, Gary Woodland won with that kind of skill set, right? Being a bomber and keeping it in play. I think he's got some top end upside there. So doesn't have any event history. You can see it's his first time out here, right? For a PGA Tour rookie, that shouldn't be really surprising. And I'm just taking a bet on the skill set, right? Just taking a look at the rough, taking a look at some of the changes that the setup staff has provided us with. And I definitely think that this kind of skill set could, at the very least, have some sort of an advantage this week. Next up, we've got ourselves Joseph Bramlett, and I'll remind you guys, if you want access to all of my picks, all the values I'm taking down low, make sure to check out the Patreon page. The link is down below. Everything that's blacked out is on there. But another bomber right here towards the bottom end of the 7K range is Bramlett, right? $7,200 and similar skill set, right? Gains off the tee, is going to gain with the approach play as well. Where is he at? There he is. Was just cut off from the video right there. Gaining close to half a stroke per round on approach. You go to the last 24 rounds, you can see the off the tee play comes back right around a neutral there. Gaining once again, right, close to half a stroke per round with the approach play. And the putter can be a little bit inconsistent. And pretty much in any surface, you're going to see he's a loser there. You can see the overseeded greens haven't been all that kind to him. But at a track where you're going to have that ball striking prioritized, and even the around the green play has gotten a lot better for Bramlett over the last, let's say, 3 to 4 months. He's, at the very least, I think, a solid contender to go out there and make the cut. And the huge X factor and thing we've seen from him, and the thing is, this isn't like a what-if kind of scenario like it is with Luke List, who's just going to perennially lose strokes on the greens. He's also here at $7,200. Bramlett is starting to hit the ball like List, right? Now, not nearly as prolific with the gains out there. You can see List, right, getting 0.8 strokes off the tee, 0.4 strokes on approach. But when Bramlett's firing at all cylinders, he's going to post similar numbers to List. The off the tee numbers maybe not as consistent. List is just an absolute flusher. The difference is the putter has come along a lot more often for Bramlett. He's had multiple tournaments over the last month or so where he's gone out there, gained 2, 3, sometimes even 5 strokes with the putter. And when that happens is when he goes out there and he actually gets into pretty solid contention out there. So I like his chances this week. I think that he's a little bit more likely to spike with the putter than somebody like Luke List. Just for full disclosure purposes, I'm going to be playing both of them this week. But the one I wanted to highlight here was definitely Joseph Bramlett. And the last play we're getting to, and this one could get me into trouble, okay? This is a pure, I don't want to say pure hunch play, it's a pure upside play, though. And Cameron Champ at $6,700. This guy hasn't done anything for quite some time, but when he went out there and he won the 3M Open, he pretty much came into that event not doing anything, too. And where I like to take Cameron Champ is at a course where both driving distance and accuracy are at a premium. And you've got that course here with the Valspar Championship, and I wish we had event history to go back and kind of audit this, to kind of see how it's gone. And it's worth noting, Joseph Bramlett, right, has made both of his cuts here, so that's another reason I like getting to him. So that skill set has translated over the last few years, and he's definitely playing better golf right now than he has in his entire career, so I think that bodes well for him. You can see Luke List, right? A couple made cuts there too, so you like to see that. But yeah, Cameron Champ, no course history. So if you were looking for any sort of evidence on that, it's not there. But I can just tell you that he's the one guy on tour when he's hitting the ball well off the tee, he'll hit 10, maybe even 11 or 12 fairways out of 14. This week there's only 13 fairways on property because there are 5 par 3s. Keep that in mind if you're playing on prize picks, that sort of thing. But Cam Champ, elite level off the tee player. I mean, drives the ball like Rory, if not better than Rory, Bryson DeChambeau, those players when he's out there firing. And if he's going to have like wedges or short irons into all the greens here, he can compete. Particularly if the winning score is going to be single digits under par. Now, he severely lacks around the green. He's horrible putter. I mean, look at the metrics, right? Over the last 24 rounds, it's pretty tough to get to this guy. I mean, off the tee, right? Fantastic, right? Putter's actually been pretty decent, but loses half a stroke per round on approach, half a stroke per round around the green. Last 12 rounds, it's not that much prettier. You go down here, you can see neutral off the tee, just slightly losing with the putter, and even more in the negative when it comes to the, ball striking stats, the around the green stats there too. But he's a player that just randomly pops. I mean, the off the tee play is almost always going to be there. The putter is actually pretty decent for Cameron Champ. It's a little bit inconsistent, but he pops, gains 4 or 5 strokes quite often out there. The approach play is what has to come around. And It's definitely a gamble. There's a reason why he's $6,700 in this kind of field, right? And even if he goes out there and he's like a neutral or a loser on approach, given the prowess with the putter and off the tee, I mean, he could go out there and make a cut, right? Perhaps even finish in the top 25. That's how good he is at those two categories. He just needs to keep it together, right? With the approach playing around the green. And that's a tough task, right? That's why he's missed these cuts. That's why when you look at the recent form, it's as bad as it's been. You can see out here, hasn't played all that often, but missed cut. That was at the Waste Management in Genesis. Didn't get into the Players Championship a lot because of those missed cuts and just really hadn't done anything there during the fall stretch. So I wouldn't blame you for just not playing him. Again, I'm playing him at 5-7% of lineups, right? So it's not like I'm going crazy on this guy. I wouldn't be playing him in my single entry kind of lineup, but I've seen this story before with Cameron Champ. And even when you take a look at his track record, it's worth noting, right? If you take a look at the last 4 or 5 months, he has a bunch of missed cuts in there, but he has, tied for 20th place, right? A couple top 15 finishes over the last 4 months. So it's not like he hasn't gone out there and popped. Like he's had a few of those bright spots to go off of. And at $6,700, like a T20 we'd be thrilled about, right? A T15 we'd be thrilled about. The X factor here, though, is that he could actually T5. He could win this golf tournament, right? If he goes out there and he somehow spikes with the approach play, which it's becoming more of a rarity for Cameron Champ. It's a little bit of a disappointment, to say the least, that that's the case, because his skill set of being just, I would say, like a top 10 player off the tee. When he's putting ball, he's a top 5, top 10 putter in the world. He can be that good. He's that streaky when it comes to the flat stick. When he marries those together, he's borderline unbeatable, right? If he can spike with the iron play. So I think that in terms of winning upside, he brings you infinitely more winning upside than everyone else around him. These guys aren't going to win this golf tournament. I can just tell you, with the emphasis on the ball striking, the Cameron Champ, right? He's got, I'd say, higher missed cut equity than a lot of the guys around him, but also has a lot more of that top end upside. And, for somebody that's an MME player like myself, is playing 150 lineups every single week, it's absolute gold, and enough reason for me to get there in some of those contests. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for this week's Value Plays video. Before you're hopping out of here, go ahead, smash that like button, but also go ahead, comment down below your top value play priced $8,000 and below on Draftkings. Go ahead, give me an idea of who you're getting to for that salary flexibility, and perhaps for some ownership leverage as well. And don't say Cameron Champ, that would just be crazy. I'm probably the only one insane enough to go out there and play him this week, but go ahead, let me know your thoughts down there. And best of luck with all of your lineups this week. Hopefully we can go out there, get a takedown. These value plays can bring us some of that top end upside, help us save some salary, play a few of those studs up there in the 10K range. We will have our live stream tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. We'll have a fades and sleepers video dropping early tomorrow morning with an idea of some of the guys maybe avoiding due to ownership concerns, and maybe a few players that I'm getting to up there towards the top because they're low owned. So you don't want to miss any of that. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so you get notified when all of those are up, and you can catch that content before this week. Best of luck, like I mentioned before. I appreciate all the support here on the channel, and until next time, let's get this cash.